Good morning, everyone. I'm Nan Anderson with the Governor's Office of Economic Opportunity, and I work with the Mainstreet program and would like to welcome all of you to our session this morning. This session is going to concentrate on board training, organization development, and we'll also talk about the Mainstreet 4-point approach. I'm really excited that Kim Bowser will join us, and she's going to do a presentation about the great success as well as the challenges that Ogden has had on its journey of downtown revitalization. We'll have that as a case study. So Kim, welcome. Again, she's Executive Director of the Ogden Downtown Alliance. A couple of housekeeping announcements, if I might. Please mute yourselves. We are recording this session and we'd like it to be a good quality recording. And we'll have that up on our website in about a week. If you would place your questions in the chat, we will get to those towards the end of the presentation, or if it's really pertinent, I'll try and keep an eye on that as well, and we'll address it. So let's go ahead and get started. Please notice I've put a document and two links in the chat. The first one is a board manual, which is provided by the National Mainstreet America. I find their resources absolutely incredible and hope that this will be useful. I've also put a couple of links, one to the Utah Nonprofits Association, which is a fantastic group. They're very, very involved in training. As well as seminars. They can act as a consultant to a nonprofit. So hopefully you'll find them helpful as well. The Department of Commerce is where businesses need to register regardless of profit or nonprofit status. So let's talk about Mainstreet. It is a self-help economic revitalization program that is based on utilizing each community's assets. There really isn't a more cost-effective program of economic development of any kind in the US today. Since 1980, Mainstreet districts in more than 2,000 communities have seen cumulative investment of $79 billion. 285,000 buildings have been rehabilitated, creating more than 640,000 new jobs, and also starting nearly 144,000 new businesses. Many of these are located in small towns in rural America. This historic preservation-based program didn't ruin these towns. In many cases, it literally saved them. Let's hear from the National.
Mainstreet revitalization is tough work, and the great thing about the Mainstreet America network is communities don't have to go it alone.
Mainstreet basically helps people create a vision for the future.
That's what Mainstreet really has to offer, is that continuous, that incremental success in the gathering of people continuously.
This is a time-tested, comprehensive, market-based, and community-led approach, which has been employed in over 2,000 communities over the last 40 years.
Being a part of a network like this, you get to share best practices across all kinds of markets. Very often, people will not only share their best practices with you, they will come to your community and help you implement it. Mainstreeters like to help other Mainstreeters, and so the network is extremely important.
And actually, with my experience with the National and other coordinating programs, that is absolutely the truth. Mainstreeters love to help other Mainstreeters. As a matter of fact, the bulk of our presentation here today has been cobbled together from several different state coordinating programs and local programs as well. So it's just fantastic to see the kind of cooperation that is provided amongst the Main Street family. We are a new coordinating program. The program is a subsidiary of the National Trust for Historic Preservation, and Mainstreet America is a program of that. The program, again, was launched in 1980. There are now over 2,000 official programs nationwide. And our program, the Utah Main Street program, is the contracted state coordinating agency for the state of Utah. Coordinating programs. This is defined as the entity that is given branding rights to the Main Street name. We will select designated Main Street communities or commercial districts. We will provide technical assistance and training to assure that the program operates within the standards of the National Main Street Center, utilizing as a foundation the 4-point approach. We will also act as and advocate for the center and act as a liaison between the local Main Street programs and the national. So what is this 4-point approach? The 4 points also correspond to committee structure that I'll get into more detail in just a moment. Again, tried and true strategy. These 4 points also reflect the committee structure that the national encourages us to develop. The 4 points are design, which focuses on creating and inviting an inclusive atmosphere. Promotion looks at marketing the district's defining assets. Organization, they will build leadership and strong organizational capacity. And economic vitality will build a diverse economic base. Those 4 points all support the community transformation strategy. So let's unpack that a little bit. The organization committee, they're going to get everyone working toward the same vision for the district. So what are the projects and activities that align with organization? First off, this group will create a communication plan. They'll use the tools. They'll create organizational presentations, establish a speakers bureau. They could conduct frequent presentations, create press releases, newsletters, social media presence, and brochures. They'll provide updates to elected officials and create and manage the program's website. Internal communications, they will establish systems to collect all of the organizational records. They'll prepare the annual report. They will plan and coordinate annual meetings. They'll create a method to share reports, updates, etc. Very, very important to the Main Street program is volunteer development. The organization committee could develop a list of volunteer jobs, develop recruitment tools, look at internships, getting the high school involved. They could create a volunteer database, set up info booths at community events, use the local media, social media, and website to recruit some volunteers. They could solicit volunteers in program brochures and fundraising forms. They need to engage youth groups as well as senior citizens in partnering on specific projects. Volunteer organization could include developing interview and placement for incoming volunteers, create job descriptions, develop formal processes to orient and educate volunteers using training resources and board handbooks. Also very important is volunteer retention. This committee needs to send thank you notes frequently to all volunteers involved in the Main Street program. They could write letters of appreciation to employers and city, county boards and staff, recognize those volunteers in newspaper, newsletters, website, and social media. They could host recognition events to thank and showcase volunteers. They nominate volunteers for monthly, quarterly, annual recognition, and nominate volunteers for special local, regional, and state recognition. The design component. They will focus on getting the district into top physical shape. So what are some of the projects and activities that align with the design committee? They could conduct a physical assessment, looking at current images, collecting them of the interiors, the exteriors, before, after, in progress. They could also gather a historic photo collection. Design assistance. This will support direct assistance to building owners, pardon me, develop and revise proposals, locate contractors, locate suppliers, develop cost estimates, assist with labor, assist with incentive applications, provide those incentives, for example, facade grants. They could develop a design toolkit, which would look at awning and paint samples, provide technical information, act as a resource library. They could provide National Park Service preservation briefs and preservation tech notes. Design education. They could produce workshops as well as presentations on window displays and visual merchandising, provide Main Street building basics, work on speaking engagements, and again, newsletter and press releases, awards and recognition, and contests. What does public improvement look like? They could look at space and amenities inventory, which would look at streetlights, trash containers, drinking fountains, benches or seating, vending machines, payphones, trees, plantings. They could look at a parking inventory or survey. How many stalls? What is the percentage of occupancy? What is the turnover? The public improvements program could also support cleanup days with streetscapes and amenities, as well as wayfinding signage. Planning and ordinances. They could review, revise, and develop a historic preservation ordinance, signage ordinance, sidewalk merchandise ordinance, design guidelines. They could support and work as a certified local government, or CLG, with the Historic Preservation Commission. They could conduct a historic research study and support buildings that are considering National Register nomination. This group could also look at developing incentives, local incentives with grants and/or loans, facade improvements, signage. This group will look at supporting state historic tax credit applications and federal historic tax credits. One of our great partners, the State Historic Preservation Office, or as we affectionately call it, SHPO. SHPO is very involved in supporting Main Street programs' design committees and their priorities. They've been a fantastic partner to work with. Roger Roper, whom many of you know, has been involved with our Main Street program from the beginning. He's got a couple of colleagues at SHPO that are involved in tax credit application. And also there is a new state historic architect that is available for consultation, particularly with the design committee. Promotion. This means getting more people to visit the district. And of course, with my background in tourism, got to admit, this is one of my favorite areas. So what are some of those projects and activities? They could look at assessment and planning. They could develop a position statement and identify local target market segments. They would provide image development to include image materials, which might be a slogan, graphics, web page, signage, social media presence. They could help produce street banners, a downtown directory, look at an annual joint advertising campaign, develop the all-important downtown swag, which might be t-shirts or buttons and stickers. They also could develop a formal annual evaluation process for image development activities. This group supports, organizes, promotes the special events. These could include heritage festivals, holiday celebrations, farmers markets, other agricultural themes, cultural displays and demonstrations, which might include art, music, dance, and acting. I'm sorry, someone's microphone is on. Thanks.
So When you woke up, it was empty?
But it was still running.
Excuse me, someone's microphone is on.
Well, it said loss of flame.
This group will also, again, provide event support with traffic and parking, security and safety. They'll deal with the trash, utilities, equipment,
Yeah.
insurance and royalties,
Listed in the same thing.
with underwriting and sponsorships. Advertising media could include radio, TV, print, social media, flyers and posters.
So the holes in.
They'll look at funding. They'll develop budgets and
Not
procedures,
right,
assist
no.
the board with planning the annual fund drive.
Beforehand.
I'm going to try and find whose microphone.
Sunday. Yes, told me I couldn't tell you.
Man, it looks like it's Lil White. Maybe you could mute him if you're the admin.
Yep. Okay, thanks.
Wow.
All right. Oh.
You got oil.
I can't.
Oh. What's what?
Nan, if you make me a co-host, I could help.
Okay, I think I got it. Okay, sorry about that, folks. All right, back into funding. They'll develop budgets and procedures. They'll assist the board with planning the annual fund drive. They could plan supplementary fundraising activities. They could create merchandise to supplement the budget and build an organizational image. They could establish a sponsorship campaign, evaluate current promotional programs, create a comprehensive annual calendar and budget. They'll provide business support, which could include window displays, interior decorations, memorabilia with those buttons, hats, and t-shirts. Retail could include increasing sales with discount sales promotions, seasonal merchandise movers, cluster businesses and cross promotions, window displays and interior decorations. Advertising media would include radio, TV, print, and social. They could conduct drawings and prizes with business evaluation forums, holiday celebrations, which might look at open houses, window displays, Santa visits, shop local campaigns, etc. The tourism aspect could develop a downtown walking tour, a historical tour, heritage tours, and special events. And how will they measure promotion committee's successes? They'll look at the percentage of sales increases, traffic counts, rooftop pictures, ticket sales and drawings, concessions and giveaways, and business evaluations. Okay, economic vitality. This group will look at, pardon me, creating economic activity and vibrancy. Projects and activities that align with the Economic Vitality Committee. They'll conduct assessment efforts with base data collection, past surveys, historical census data. They could look at a building inventory with assessor's information, photographs. What is the current use and availability of buildings? Have a local contact, develop a business inventory with a list of all businesses categorized by type. This committee needs to know and understand their district. They could review secondary research, conduct primary research, look at a consumer survey, business visitation and surveys, gather, tabulate, and evaluate that research, and then present and act on the findings, all to support development of a position statement. This group also looks at business retention. They could produce a business directory, work on a business assistance team, conduct educational seminars and workshops. They could conduct a business recognition program with business succession and transition assistance. They could, of course, write newsletter articles and support development of an incentive package. This group will improve the value of real estate with a property inventory. They could find better uses for vacant or underutilized buildings. They could look at total building utilization, consider upper story housing, commercial rehabilitation. They could develop and market incentive programs to stimulate both commercial and real estate growth. Business expansion could look at developing focus groups with business, customer, and market feasibility studies. They could help support business plans and projections and work with the local small business development center. Business recruitment. This committee could assemble a recruitment packet, which could include market data, available building information, community data. They could create recruitment teams and, of course, develop available incentives. Advanced real estate development. They could cluster strategies, determine existing clusters, create a list of complementary businesses, a pro forma analysis, look at adaptive reuse studies, the community initiative development, form a group of local business owners, identify properties, and to support proposal development. This group will also provide on a monthly basis, hopefully, changes in the district. Why do communities invest in economic development? We've got a path that is fairly common throughout the state of Utah that includes economic developers working with successful businesses who in turn support community priorities. Mainstreet America also has a founding of 8 guiding principles. This approach sets it apart from other redevelopment strategies. It's comprehensive. There is no single focus such as lavish public improvements, name brand business recruitment, or endless promotional events. Not that single focus can do the job. For successful long-term revitalization, a comprehensive approach has to be applied. It's incremental. We're going to have baby steps before walking. Basic, simple activities will lead to a more sophisticated understanding of the revitalization process and help members of the community develop skills and resources to tackle more complex problems and ambitious projects. Nobody else is going to help save Main Street. We're calling this a self-help downtown revitalization program. Local leaders must have the will and desire to mobilize local resources. And that means convincing residents and business owners alike of the rewards for their investment of time and money in Main Street, which is the heart of the community. Partnerships. Both public and private sectors have a vital interest in the district and can work together to achieve shared goals. Each sector has a role to play, and each must understand the other's strengths and limitations to forge an effective partnership. The assets. Business districts must capitalize on the assets that make them unique. We know this from tourism especially. Authenticity and uniqueness. Tourists want that in the tourism product that they purchase. Every district has unique qualities like distinctive buildings and human scale that give people a sense of belonging. These local assets need to serve as the foundation for all aspects of the revitalization program. Quality. Emphasize quality in every aspect of the revitalization program. This applies to every element of the process, from storefront designs to promotional campaigns to educational programs. Shoestring budgets and cut and paste efforts will not do the job. Change. This program can help turn skeptics into believers. Almost no one believes Main Street can really turn around at first, but then changes in attitude and practice are slow but definite. Public support for change will build as the program grows and consistently meets its goals. Finally, implementation. Activity creates confidence in the program and ever greater levels of participation. Frequent visible changes are a reminder that revitalization effort is underway in your town. Small projects at the beginning of the program pave the way for other activities as the revitalization effort matures. We're learning more and more It is so important as a part of this process that all the communities celebrate the win. It doesn't matter how small of a win. What does matter is that you're telling your citizens you've got movement and you're making progress on your revitalization efforts. Here's a sample of a typical Main Street organization structure. I'll talk a little bit about nonprofit status in a moment. We're not saying you absolutely must adhere to this structure, but this is, again, a tried and true and proven successful approach. You see the board of directors, they address finances, advocacy, they are policy making, they support planning, and they also deal with personnel. Underneath the board is the program manager, who's actually doing the day-to-day work of Main Street. Underneath that, you have the executives, the officers, and there are the 4 committees of organization, promotion, design, and economic vitality. What are some of those board roles and responsibilities? The board needs to help support and develop the mission, the vision, as well as strategic planning. Most boards hire, support, and evaluate the executive director. The board must provide a fiduciary agent. The board, again, is policy setting, not just advisory. And they also support securing resources and fundraising. The mission statement answers why an organization exists. The vision is a description of what the organization will look like at a specified time in the future. Strategic planning is a process by which the board, staff, and others decide the strategy for the future direction of the organization. They allocate resources, including people, to ensure success. Again, the board hires, supports, and evaluates the CEO. They need to designate a fiduciary agent. Normally, this role is supplied by the treasurer of the organization. But it's very important whether they hold the title of treasurer or not, you will need a fiduciary agent who can read and understand approved financials, look at, approve and audit as appropriate. Now, FYI, in the nonprofit world, it is not mandatory that you have a audit on an annual basis because they're so expensive. There is a process called an accounting review, which is much less expensive, but a review could be conducted on an annual basis and then a full-blown audit on, some other kind of basis. Full-blown audits are required, however, if you receive government funds. Lastly, the agent needs to understand how the programs tie to the mission and the number of people served in those programs, as well as the impact. The board is policy setting. They address personnel, the finances. They'll support whistleblower efforts. They address ethics. There needs to be a conflict of interest statement and others relevant to the field or community. A little bit about securing resources and fundraising. I've seen many boards of nonprofits that basically, they will support staff in fundraising, but they're not actively involved themselves, which is not a way to set your organization up for success. That board is responsible for creating and executing a plan to raise money. It is not exclusively on staff's shoulders. The full board is responsible for introducing their network to the organization. They need to attend events and financially support the organization. That feeds into, these are very common expectations of board members. And I know a lot of people hesitate because we've all been on boards that have some folks that literally just, they kind of hang out and they're not really active. They may or may not attend meetings. I think it's very important that any Main Street program be very clear when they start to shape their boards. They need to tell prospective board members what their expectations are. And again, these are very common. Attend at least 75% of the meetings, serve on a committee, represent the organization, set and uphold policies, attend events, and encourage others to do so. Give a personally significant financial gift. They also need to help solicit additional gifts. They could introduce the organization to that board member's circle of influence. And of course, all of them should be working for the betterment of the organization. A couple of ID options. As you start to look at shaping your board, what skill sets do you need? Do you want a CPA on your board who can help review and act as that fiscal agent? You need diversity on your board. One of the points that Norma from National has made with us is the importance of diversity on a board and having all kinds of different voices at the table to make sure that your board is not exclusively controlled by one particular group or another. Recognition. I feel like this is an area that we could all do better in. Board members should be treated like donors plus. They need to be recognized and thanked, whether it's in articles or whether it's nomination for local awards. Who doesn't like to be recognized? How can you move your board forward? Talk with the board about what they want, why they joined, and what they hope to get out of their service to the organization. You could call a retreat, take surveys, add some impactful stories to the agenda, have a strategic planning session, and then continue to talk that strategy throughout the year. This is supplied to us from the Utah Nonprofits Association, and hopefully the link is working in the chat. Steps 1 through 10 there, fairly straightforward. I believe in Utah, step number 4, as you start to look at preparation of articles of incorporation, you do need to have 3 incorporators. They cannot be related, as I understand it, and they should be, indicative of the organization. In Utah, if you do gain what's called 501c3 status, that is a nonprofit organization that is organized and operated exclusively for exempt purposes. No one individual can achieve or receive any additional earnings from this board. C3s are normally referred to as charitable organizations. They have some sort of foundation in, for example, the education arena. They could be, again, a true charitable organization. C3 status is great for several different reasons. First and foremost, especially for us as Mainstreet programs, it provides tax deduction to any donor, but it also, with C3 status, you are able to access grants more readily than other C designations. For example, you could work with several private foundations who only and exclusively will give funding to C3s. The group that I worked with, the Utah Tourism Industry Association, is actually a C6. So they do have nonprofit status. However, C6 was developed, as I understand it, for efforts like chambers of commerce, where you would have a business strategy as your foundation. You probably also have members. Again, there are many different aspects. There are C4s, several of the type of 501c organizations. So, but please note, if you do decide to go for C3 status, you are restricted in how much political and legislative or lobbying activities you can conduct. So just a heads up, I've done 3 or 4 C3 applications. It is a long process, but it can be done. Here are some of those nonprofit resources. We want to provide you with as many resources and as much information as possible. So we will be putting a lot of this information on our website. You need to incorporate and register. You could use the information from the Utah nonprofits. You register and file those articles of incorporation with the Utah Department of Commerce. If you do decide to go for federal designation of 501c status, you can do that with downloadable forms from irs.gov. Let's hear from the national again.
The reason Main Street is so successful is because of the people.
None of us is as smart as all of us, and so when you get people to sit down together and talk about the future of their community, and then you give them a framework to reshape it, they can embrace that and work hard and really change a place.
We see volunteers taking on all kinds of responsibilities. So you might have a graphic designer who volunteers their time to develop a logo for downtown, or an attorney who volunteers legal services, an accountant who helps with bookkeeping for the Main Street. They are singularly dedicated to making their communities a better place and improving the local economy of their community, enhancing the overall quality of life.
So with that, I'm going to wrap up this section. I want to give a shout out to organizations that helped us find those resources for this, and that includes the Orlando Main Street Program, Utah Nonprofits Association, Philanthropy Ohio, the Nonprofit Evolution, and of course, Mainstreet America. My email address is nanderson@utah.gov. That's N Anderson with an O at utah.gov. So at this point, let's go ahead. I'm going to stop sharing, and Kim, if you would like to move forward and tell us all about the successes and challenges you've had in Ogden.
Hi, Nan, thank you. Did you have my PowerPoint, or should I pull that up?
Yeah, if you could pull it up, that would be great.
Okay. Give me 2 seconds. Sorry, guys. I, like everyone else, am happy that we are virtual because I have a little bit of a bug, so my voice is a little bit messed up here. Nan, I don't have screen sharing, I don't think. Hold on, here we go. Can you guys see this now?
Yep.
Okay, great. So I'm the executive director of the Ogden Downtown Alliance, and hold on, let me stop for just a second. I got the out of order here. Nan asked me to present a little bit about what has worked for the Downtown Alliance and what we've kind of gone through. And I have to admit, I was a little bit intimidated by the request because I don't feel that we are this like perfect case study of everything that's right in terms of redevelopment. But I do think there's lots of things that we have done that have worked. And so I think just being really honest about that journey is probably the most useful for all of you. So does that look right now for you guys?
That looks great.
Yep.
Okay, thank you. So I asked Greg Montgomery from our Ogden City Planning Department to kind of share some history of the street. So for those of you guys in downtown Ogden, those of you guys who are not familiar with the area, some really quick numbers for you. So 1920, we had 12, a dozen bars in 3 blocks is pretty intense. And then you can see here 4 barbershops, 10 grocery stores, 12 restaurants. And this, everyone I think is familiar with the decline But this 1979, having 33 vacant buildings and only 43 of those are actually in the historic district now today, it's pretty remarkable when you think about everything that's happened. And so he shared some great pictures, and I'm just going to scroll through these super, super fast because I kind of want to get, and hopefully you see these preserving these bullet points as they go through here quickly. This is Washington Boulevard, some really great pictures. This used to be a mall, but that's not there anymore. And this is what has replaced that area. And so he bullet pointed, this is again from Greg, bullet pointing some of the things that have helped to bring 25th Street back. And so I want to share that with you guys, but you can see there's a long list, and a lot of those things match up with what Nan is sharing in the Main Streets program and what 25th Street looks like now, obviously a lot more vibrant and pretty. So the guts and glory of the Downtown Alliance, our Downtown Alliance story, historic 25th Street had a business association, essentially a merchant association. They were started out just wanting to be able to purchase really like newspaper ads together. And so they co-opted their funds together so that they could place an ad in the newspaper, which none of them could afford individually. And so it became this kind of dues-based organization, really based on what the market rates were for advertising, so whether that was radio or some print pieces. And all of it was volunteer. It was a complete volunteer organization. The dues were paid. There was a volunteer treasurer. It was really kind of what Nan described as that shoestring and tape. It was a lot of that. It was a lot of people who really cared about the community and were trying their hardest to do something amazing. I actually got involved with that organization as a volunteer for marketing. I wanted to do some social media and some blog posts to help tell the story of what was downtown. And so through that volunteer work, we started realizing, hey, this model really doesn't work, because if we're only marketing and advertising the businesses who are paying into a membership, it's not really reflective of the community and the whole of downtown. And there were some really great stories and great businesses, but they weren't in that position to be able to afford a membership, or they didn't understand the value that was there. And so it was creating a lot of like this dissension among people. And so I was actually contracted to come up with a new plan and concept for, well, you've pointed out that this is broken, but how do we fix it? And so it was a lot of this like limbo mode for what felt like forever. And now looking back at it, it wasn't, but it really did feel like, oh my gosh, we need something that's bigger than this 25th Street Association. The city has been doing some things. There's this group doing this. There's all these different groups, and it felt like there just needed to be something bringing them all together. And it's funny that Nan is sharing resources from Utah Nonprofits Association, because I actually attended a conference there for something completely different, for a board I was participating on with a different nonprofit. And I just happened to be sitting in this, I think, perfectly coincidental. This person from Green River, Utah was talking about asking his mayor, like, when are we going to clean up this town? And the mayor at a press conference, I think, said, when are you? And he shared his story, and it just really hit this strike in me, like, hey, it needs to be us. We've been talking about this long enough, and this limbo mode, it needs to be us. And so we got together this kind of mock board that took some of the existing historic 25th Street Association members that were really gung-ho and dig-in type of people, but it also pulled in people outside of that organization that were heavily involved in city leadership, or were really good. Some of those things that Nan identified as people that you want to have on your different boards and committees. And we started putting together a plan, and like, hey, this is what we need. And we went to the city with this big ask, and we said, the city's been investing in redevelopment, 25th Street Association and business owners have been trying to do this, but we just need help, and there needs to be an investment from the city level to get us started. And so I put on here limbo again, because it felt like that. We kind of put all this effort into this ask, and then we had to sit and wait. And we did end up receiving support from Ogden City to get going. And like I said, you know, it felt like this huge amount of time, but then once you get started, it was like, bam, all cylinders firing. And we got funded in January of 2016. And that year, we actually took on everything. And so we created our first, we didn't even have a strategic plan. We decided we would set aside the first year to say, okay, we know that we have this idea and we know what we think we need, but we want to spend a full year putting staff to that idea. So we had a team of 2. It was myself and another gentleman who had been working with the Historic 25th Street Association. And we were like, we're going to have staff, and we'll be able to, because we'll be paid, we'll be able to dedicate time to figuring out what this really needs to look like. Well, 2 people, and we had a budget of that year for $70,000. So it's not a lot of money. We ended up hiring another person. So now you have 3 people on that 70,000. I mean, we had promised Ogden City we would have an accessible office location that would be staffed and open from 9 to 5 business hours. And so anyone could come in and share an idea. And that was a commitment we made to the city. But that $70,000 does not pay rent and 3 salaries, I assure you that. But we knew that we needed to do this. And so the 25th Street Association gave us some seed funding as well. And they also offered up to us some of their events that did make money, which was like the Historic 25th Street Car Show, Harvest Moon, and then Witchstock. Those events had kind of made a little bit of money. Car Show makes like $400, but they were like, we will give you these events so you have something. And so now, instead of just like, okay, we got to spend a year doing this, we also needed to manage the farmers market, car show, Harvest Moon, and Witchstock. But we did this needs assessment. We really didn't know what we were doing, other than, again, just being people that cared and had a lot of passion and grit. And we took that kind of mock board, and we walked all of the district area, the defined downtown. Those boundaries came from Ogden City's planning department. So we took the existing boundaries of downtown and we walked every single corridor. We photographed anything that was a concern. So if it was chain link fences or trash or graffiti, vacant buildings, broken windows, things that were just ugly or things that were just empty or underutilized, we took pictures and photographed everything. We then, as a staff, went and worked on all of those different things, like what are the rules of these locations, who owns these places, and then we brought the board back together for a 3-day retreat. And I think this is the most important part of how we got started. We took all of those pictures and we had them pasted up on the wall in our conference room. And then we started analyzing things with the board. Okay, like, well, what are the things that we're really looking at and talking about here? And we kind of created some initial project concept names, like we need a cleanup committee or program. We need a graffiti solution, all of these different things. So you start lumping some of those problems together. We did that. And then we started taking color-coded dots, and we used a series of red, green, and orange. And then we also had a pink. And so anything that we felt we could accomplish in the first year, like starting the year after this program, the needs assessment year, do we feel like we could address this in year 1? We had a color for that. If we felt it was a 2 to 3 year program, we did a different color. If we felt it was 3 years or beyond, we used a different color. And then those pink stickers were for anything that we felt was really not something that the Downtown Alliance was ever going to do or be in charge of, but was something that we wanted to advocate for. And so we needed to figure out who would or could be in charge of those things. And so we did all of that. We managed all of those events. The events were really great for us because they helped us get visibility and earn some income to keep us rolling and that forward momentum. And at the end of that year, we presented part of our commitment to Ogden City. We had told them we'd come back to the table with a 5-year strategic plan, including this first year needs assessment, and that we would come to them with a budget of what we needed, not only from the city, but how we plan to fund and pay for the rest of the things on our own. And so we did that. And we came out in 2017 with this 5-year strategic plan and a budget and a request from Ogden City for funding. So some lessons learned that I would share with you. And again, this is a super, super quick overview of everything, but we loved having those events because we were immediately able to come out the gate with our logo and a name in the community, like, hey, we're doing something and you're seeing it happen. And that was really awesome for us in those first few years. Now it's almost a con for us because people are like, oh, you're an events production company. You're an events organization. And while that's true that we do put on a lot of events in our downtown, that's not the end all be all of our focus, nor is it our primary focus. And so that's something that I would encourage you as you're getting going with your Main Street programs to make sure that those conversations you're having with community stakeholders, that events are always leverage for you, but they're not your brand identifier, right? Another huge lesson that we've learned, we've outgrown our budget a ton. When we came to the table with Ogden City and we said, hey, look, we want to ask you for support and funding, but we also want, and we thought we were doing such a great job with this, we also don't want to be asking the city for everything. And so we're going to show you how we can fund ourselves and how we can do all of these things without you too. And so we have a fixed contract with Ogden City that was originally about 1/3 of our budget and is now way less than 1/3 of our budget. And so I'm constantly working with our board and our community partners to come up with a difference. We don't have a business improvement district. We don't have a tax mechanism where the work that we're contributing into downtown is clearly and obviously supporting higher tax increment basis, but we're not seeing the benefit of that in the way that we're funded. And so that's something that you really want to think about. We were so eager to just get going, and we didn't have all these resources that you have at your table now. We didn't have this Main Street program. We didn't know all of these different things. And we were just trying, we were on that shoestring piece, like just trying to make things work. And so we have, but because we did that, we're also having to come back and address some things now in a little bit harder fashion. So that's a caution to you. But also, I think when you look at these Main Street programs and all of the facets of things that you can be working on, it's really intimidating to look at. Okay, you need all of these different things. And so I want to be cautionary, but also remind you that waiting for perfect means that you're always going to be waiting. And if you have a really strong merchant group, or you have a really connected chamber, or people who are just like, hey, like, how can I help? It's okay. You know, it's okay to start in smaller ways. And it's okay to know like that you are piecing it together and that you're going to have to at some point look back and go, okay, like, but you're constantly reevaluating. And that's something that I think, because of where we've grown from, we're still learning, but we're able to learn the forward momentum because we're always self-analyzing ourselves, because we know that we came from nothing, and that scrappiness about us, like, okay, how can we make sure we're staying true to those roots? Are these programs still what we need to be focusing on, or are there things that we need to be shifting to and changing? And so we're still a young organization. You know, we're about five years into it, a little past 5 years into it. We utilize, this is our mission on the right side here. This is our mission and vision statement combined. And then on the left, we've divided our work into 6 pillars. I think as we go through this Main Streets program, we'll probably pick up and align with the Main Streets. All of this work is seen in the Main Streets program, but is outlined a little bit differently. And so I think you'll see some of the way we identify our pillars change. But the 6 pillars that we have, and someone was just at our town hall, we do them several times a year, and was like, man, this is so intimidating how polished and put together you are. And I kind of laughed because that's not how it has always been. And we have all of these things now. We're by no stretch of the imagination perfected or anything else. We're just caring and trying our hardest. And I think we're just as excited as probably all of you are to be joining this Main Streets program and to be able to learn and get better and all of those things. And so I am super excited that Nan asked us to share, but I don't know that we're the quintessential, but I'm excited to be able to share what we have learned. And I am proud of the things that we've been able to accomplish as a community so far as well. These are some of the events that we manage now and what the street looks like. Our historic 25th Street looks like when those events are happening. It's busy and gorgeous and so lovely seeing all those people down there. And in 2021, a year coming just barely off of COVID, we did about $8.1 million in economic impact through our events alone. So all of these things matter. All of it does add up eventually, I promise you. And I'm just really excited to be a part of this group and working with all of us together. So thanks, Nan, for having me. I appreciate it.
Thank you. And I just think that Ogden has done an amazing job. So, and under your leadership, they're just going to keep improving. Thank you so much for the presentation. I've reposted the links in the chat, as well as the board member handbook from Mainstreet America. So we've got a few minutes left. Does anybody have any questions?
You know, I don't think I have a question right now, Nan, but I took so many notes during all of this, right? I think there's just so many things to improve and to go at, and I just appreciate you and Kim too. Thank you so much for sharing some of your history with us. It gives me ideas on how we can improve and find ways to make this an enduring program. So thank you.
Great. Thank you, Jared. And I've got to say, you know, having started, again, a couple of nonprofits myself, it's a lot of detailed work, but I would like to stress to all of you on the call, this is a forming program. Not everything is cast in concrete yet. For example, maybe Jared, with your group in Tooele City, you may not have to push for a separate nonprofit to run your program. You may not be ready for that yet. I think we've got a lot of communities in different phases of this approach. You know, and again, one of the reasons I wanted us to look at Ogden is they do have a separate organization. They have constructed their revenue streams, so on and so forth. But just know we've got a lot of flexibility in how you as communities are approaching this effort. And again, I think a big part of our role is to support you as you move along in this process, provide you with as many resources as we possibly can. So along those lines, I'm thinking of maybe not next month, but the following month, would you all be interested in a deep dive into how to fund a Main Street effort?
Yes.
Yes.
Great, great. Maybe we can do that in a little bit, but if no one else has any other questions.
Maybe this is more along the lines of what you would get into in the meeting you're talking about maybe next month or the following, but with the Ogden situation and the story about how they went down Main Street and took pictures of things that needed repaired and put a plan together of how to get those done. How have you guys worked out funding a project for a property owner and making that fair across the board for other property owners on Main Street?
So when we did that, a lot of the work was more public facing things. Now we do have a facade improvement grant, and we do an application process. So we have, it's same as like any grant really at that point. Business owners can apply. They can only apply for one, the address can only receive funding one time. So like a business owner versus a building manager or a tenant, sorry. And like we just score them out the same way. And so it becomes very fair in that regard. We have a committee. It's not just us, it's made of outside members as well. But I think that's something that you're gonna have to get over. It's so hard. Like when we were switching from the association to what is the Downtown Alliance, I literally felt like I was a divorce court mediator, because there were people who were so angry about what had happened, how it had happened, what hadn't happened, why it hadn't happened, et cetera, et cetera. And it's like, all these people are just caring a lot about the community, but there was no one organizing anything. And so there wasn't this one centralized vision or idea of where we're going. And there were just people trying to do things. And so you're gonna have people get their feelings hurt. You're gonna have people who think that it's not fair, especially those people who have been maybe the ones to show up the longest, because they're like, well, I probably deserve the most because I've been putting into this before there was an organization. And those are hard conversations. I'm totally happy to address more of that offline, but I think for all of you and your communities, that is a hard piece of puzzle, but it is a reality.
Great. That's a great answer. Thank you.
Great. Last call for questions. Well, we'll wrap up today. Thank you so much again for participating. We totally appreciate it. And Kim, you rock. And I do think Ogden is an extraordinary example. But I hope everyone knows one of the foundation aspects of this program is to share, learn from each other, and to support each other. I really do feel like we're creating a family here, and we've got family at the national level. We've got family at the local and state level. So again, thank you all. And we should have this recording up on the Go Utah website in about a week. And that's business.utah.gov, and look under programs. So with that, everybody have a great rest of your day. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.